The billionaire left a secret in his mansion. No one knew what it was until a maid's toddler opened it. The Montgomery estate rose from the hillside like a fortress of glass and stone, its modern lines cutting sharply against the October sky. To the residents of Ashford, Connecticut, it was both a landmark and a mystery, a place where one of the youngest self-made billionaires in America lived in almost complete isolation. Marcus Montgomery was 33 years old when he purchased the 12,000-square-foot mansion, though most people in town had never seen him up close. They knew his story from business magazines and occasional newspaper features. The tech prodigy, who'd built a revolutionary AI platform from his college dorm room, sold it for an unfathomable sum before he turned 30 and then seemingly disappeared from public life. Some said he was working on his next venture. Others whispered that the pressure of sudden wealth had broken something inside him. Elena Reyes knew a different Marcus Montgomery, or rather, she knew the edges of him, the fragments he allowed his household staff to see. At 28, she'd been cleaning homes for 6 years, ever since she'd arrived in Connecticut from El Salvador with her infant daughter, and nothing else but hope. The Montgomery estate was her most important client, the one that paid enough to cover rent on her small apartment and her daughter Sophia's daycare, with a little left over to send back home to her mother. She'd been working at the mansion for 8 months, arriving every Tuesday and Friday morning at 7 o'clock sharp. Marcus was always polite, always distant. He'd nod as she entered, sometimes murmur a quiet good morning, and then disappear into his office for hours. The house was immaculate. He was tidy by nature, but he'd insisted on having someone come regularly anyway. Elena suspected he was just lonely, that having another person in the vast space brought him some small comfort he couldn't admit to needing. The mansion was a maze of rooms, each more stunning than the last. The living room had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the valley. The kitchen was all marble and stainless steel, restaurant-grade appliances that looked barely used. There was a home theater, a gym, a library with mahogany shelves that climbed 2 stories high. But there was one door Elena had never been asked to clean behind, a ivory-colored door at the end of the second-floor hallway, always locked, never discussed. She'd asked about it once, casually, while dusting the nearby bookshelf. "Should I clean that room as well, Mr. Montgomery?" His face had gone carefully blank.
No.
"That room stays locked." His tone hadn't been unkind, but it had been final. Elena hadn't asked again. On a gray Friday morning in late October, Elena arrived at the mansion to find Marcus standing in the foyer, his tall frame silhouetted against the morning light. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, his usually neat brown hair disheveled. In 8 months, she'd never seen him anything but composed. "Elena," he said, and there was something urgent in his voice. "I need to ask you a favor, and I understand completely if you say no." She set down her cleaning supplies, suddenly alert. "Is everything all right, Mr. Montgomery?" "My sister's in the hospital. She had her baby early. There are complications. I need to drive to Boston immediately, but I can't reach my assistant, and the security system's acting up," and he stopped himself, taking a breath. Sophia's daycare called. "They're closing early today because of some plumbing emergency. I know you normally work alone here, but could she stay with you while you clean? I'll pay you double, triple, whatever you need. I just can't leave the house unattended with the alarm malfunctioning." Elena's mind raced. She rarely brought Sophia to work. It was unprofessional, and the little girl was a whirlwind of 3-year-old energy. But the daycare had indeed called her with an urgent message, and her backup sitter was out of town. She had no other options. "Yes," she said. "Yes, of course. Your sister needs you. Sophia will be fine here with me." The relief that washed over Marcus's face was profound. "Thank you. Thank you so much. There's a tablet in the kitchen drawer. She can watch cartoons. Help yourself to anything in the fridge. I should be back by evening." He grabbed his keys, then paused. "Elena, you're a lifesaver. Truly." Then he was gone, and the massive house fell silent around her. An hour later, Elena's neighbor dropped Sophia off at the front door. The little girl burst into the foyer like a beam of sunshine, her dark curls bouncing, her pink overalls already smudged with breakfast. "Mommy, this house is like a castle. It's where Mommy works, mi amor. You need to be very good today, very careful. Can you do that?" Sophia nodded solemnly, her brown eyes wide with wonder as she took in the chandelier, the sweeping staircase, the art on the walls. Elena set her up in the kitchen with a tablet and a snack, then began her usual routine. For an hour, everything went smoothly. She dusted the living room while Sophia hummed along to cartoon songs. She vacuumed the den while Sophia munched on apple slices. But 3-year-olds have limited attention spans, and inevitably, Sophia grew restless. "Mommy, can I explore?" "Only downstairs, baby. Stay where I can see you." But when Elena emerged from organizing the pantry 15 minutes later, Sophia was nowhere to be found. "Sophia?" Elena called, trying to keep the panic from her voice. "Sophia, where are you?" She checked the living room, the library, the home theater. Her heart began to hammer. The house was enormous, full of expensive things and potential dangers. "Sophia." A small voice floated down from the second floor. "Mommy, come see." Elena took the stairs 2 at a time, her chest tight with fear and relief. She found Sophia at the end of the hallway, standing in front of the ivory door that was always locked. Only now it wasn't locked anymore. It stood slightly ajar. Sophia, no. But her daughter had already pushed it open and stepped inside. Elena rushed forward, apologies already forming for whatever boundary she'd inadvertently crossed. But when she reached the doorway and looked inside, every word died on her lips. The room was not an office or a storage space or a private gym. It was a nursery. Elena stood frozen in the doorway, her mind struggling to make sense of what she was seeing. The nursery was perfect, like something from a high-end catalog, untouched and waiting. Soft morning light filtered through gauze curtains, illuminating a space that somehow felt both beautiful and heartbreaking. The walls were painted a gentle sage green, decorated with hand-painted murals of woodland creatures, deer and rabbits and foxes, rendered in soft watercolors that seemed to dance across the wall. A white crib stood against the far wall, its mattress made up with crisp linen sheets patterned with tiny silver stars. Above it hung a mobile of felt clouds and moons that swayed slightly in the air current from the open door. There was a rocking chair in the corner, a cream-colored glider with a small table beside it. On the table sat a book, Goodnight Moon, its cover worn as if someone had read it many times, planning to read it many more. A changing table held neat stacks of diapers and onesies, all still in their packaging, organized by size. 0 to 3 months, 3 to 6 months, 6 to 9 months. An entire childhood, planned and purchased and frozen in time. Sophia had toddled over to a toy chest carved from light wood, its lid decorated with more of the woodland creatures. "Mommy, look at all the toys." But Elena barely heard her. Her eyes had found the photographs on the dresser. A young woman with auburn hair and Marcus's same green eyes, her pregnant belly prominent under a summer dress. In another frame, the same woman and Marcus laughed together, his arm around her shoulders, both of them radiant with joy. And in a third, smaller frame, tucked slightly behind the others, was a hospital photograph. The woman held a tiny bundle, her face exhausted and glowing with love. Marcus sat beside the bed, his hand on hers, tears streaming down his face. Elena's throat constricted. She understood now. The locked door, the pristine emptiness of this perfect room, the way Marcus moved through his mansion like a ghost through a mausoleum. "Sophia, we need to go," she said softly. "This isn't our room to be in." But Sophia had opened the toy chest and discovered a treasure trove, a plush rabbit with floppy ears, a set of wooden blocks, a xylophone with a tiny mallet. "Can I play with this? Just for a little while?" Elena should have said no. She should have taken her daughter's hand and closed the door and locked away this private grief that didn't belong to her. But something in the quality of light in this room, something in the love that still lingered in every carefully chosen detail, made her hesitate. "Just for a few minutes," she whispered, very gently. While Sophia sat on the plush cream rug and carefully stacked the wooden blocks, Elena found herself drawn to the details of the room. Everything spoke of anticipation, of plans made with confidence that the future would unfold exactly as hoped. There were blackout curtains for naps, a sound machine still in its box, a diaper genie, a baby monitor with 2 receivers. On a built-in shelf, she found more books, a library for someone who couldn't yet read. The Very Hungry Caterpillar, Where the Wild Things Are, Guess How Much I Love You. Each one new, waiting for small hands to turn the pages, for a child's voice to demand, again, after the last page. In the closet, Elena discovered tiny clothes still bearing their tags. Newborn gowns with fold-over mittens, sleep sacks decorated with elephants, a coming-home outfit, carefully selected, white pants and a gray sweater with a little bear stitched on the front. She touched the soft fabric, and her heart ached for Marcus Montgomery, for the person he'd been in those photographs, so full of joy and certainty. Sophia's voice broke through her reverie. "Mommy, what's this?" Her daughter had abandoned the blocks and found something else in the toy chest, a leather journal, bound simply, tucked beneath the toys. Elena knelt beside her, gently taking the journal. She shouldn't look. She absolutely shouldn't. She opened it anyway. The first page bore a single line in Marcus's neat handwriting. "Letters to Lily Rose, from your dad, who loves you more than all the stars." Elena's eyes filled with tears. She turned the page. "Dear Lily Rose, today your mom and I found out you exist. We weren't planning for you. Not yet. We thought we had more time. But the moment I saw your tiny shadow on the ultrasound screen, I knew my life had just changed forever. You're barely the size of a blueberry, and already you're the most important person in my world." Your mom cried. I cried. We held each other in the parking lot and laughed at what a mess we were. "We can't wait to meet you." The next entry was dated 2 weeks later. "Dear Lily Rose, your mom has morning sickness, so bad, she can barely keep anything down, but she says it's worth it because it means you're growing strong. I've been reading books about pregnancy, so many books. Did you know your little heart started beating this week? I lie awake at night thinking about that, about your tiny heart beating inside your mom, and I can't believe how lucky I am." Elena wiped her eyes and turned another page. "Dear Lily Rose, we told our families today. Everyone's so excited. Your Aunt Sarah cried and immediately started planning your baby shower. Your grandma is already knitting blankets. She's made 3 so far and shows no signs of stopping. Your mom's parents are flying in from Ireland next month. Everyone keeps asking if we hope you're a boy or a girl, and honestly, we don't care even a little bit. We just want you healthy. We just want to hold you." The entries continued, marking the milestones of a pregnancy documented with love and anticipation. The first time they felt the baby kick. The ultrasound where they learned she was a girl. The day they started setting up this nursery. Marcus's words were tender, full of dreams about teaching his daughter to code, to think critically, to be kind. He wrote about taking her to the beach, reading her stories, showing her the stars. "Dear Lily Rose, your mom picked out your name today. Lily for her grandmother, Rose for mine. Lily Rose Montgomery. It's perfect. You're going to be perfect. Just 3 more weeks until we meet you. I've been practicing with dolls. Yes, your ridiculous father has been walking around the house with a baby doll, learning how to change diapers and swaddle and support a newborn head. Your mom laughs at me, but I want to be ready. I want to be the best dad you could possibly have." The next entry was different. The handwriting was shaky, barely legible. "Dear Lily Rose, you were born 3 weeks early. Something went wrong. Your mom." The word stopped, then started again. Your mom developed something called an amniotic fluid embolism during delivery. The doctors said it's rare, unpredictable, almost always fatal. They tried everything. She held you for 7 minutes. She named you. She told me to tell you every day that she loved you. And then she was gone and you were gone, and I don't understand how the sun is still rising when the entire world just ended. There were no more entries after that. Elena sat on the floor of the nursery, this shrine to a future that never came, and wept silently. Sophia abandoned her blocks and crawled into her mother's lap, sensing her distress, without understanding it. "Mommy's sad," she whispered, patting Elena's cheek with her small hand. "Yes, baby. Mommy's sad for someone who lost something very precious." Sophia considered this seriously, then picked up the plush rabbit from the toy chest. "This can help. Rabbits make people happy." From the mouths of children, Elena thought. She held her daughter close, breathing in the smell of her shampoo, feeling the solid warmth of her small body. What would she do if something happened to Sophia? How would she survive that unbearable mathematics, a world with her daughter subtracted from it? She understood now why Marcus lived like a ghost. He'd lost everything that mattered in a single day. This room was all he had left of the future he'd planned, the family he'd prepared for with such care and hope. Elena gently closed the journal and placed it back in the toy chest. "Come on, mi amor. We need to finish Mommy's work." But as they stood to leave, Sophia clutched the plush rabbit to her chest. "Can I keep this? Just to borrow? It seems lonely here." Elena's first instinct was to say no, to leave everything exactly as they'd found it. But something made her hesitate. Maybe it was the shaft of sunlight illuminating the dust motes that floated through the room, dust that proved no one had been in here for months, maybe years. Maybe it was the sadness of all these things meant to be loved and played with, instead locked away in darkness. "Okay," she said softly, "but we have to take very good care of it. It's special." Sophia nodded solemnly and carried the rabbit out of the nursery, like she was carrying something precious. Elena pulled the door closed behind them, but when she tried the handle, she realized the lock wasn't working. It must have been the malfunction Marcus had mentioned. She'd have to tell him when he returned. Elena couldn't focus on cleaning. She moved through the mansion's first floor mechanically, dusting surfaces and vacuuming carpets while her mind remained in that nursery, haunted by Marcus's letters to the daughter he'd never gotten to raise. Sophia played quietly nearby, the gray rabbit, she'd named it Mr. Hoppy, tucked under her arm. By early afternoon, Elena had finished her usual tasks, but she found herself unable to leave. Something about walking away from that open door, from that room full of frozen grief, felt wrong. She made Sophia lunch from things in Marcus's refrigerator: sliced turkey and cheese, grapes cut into careful halves, crackers shaped like fish, and while her daughter ate, Elena tried to sort through her tangled thoughts. She barely knew Marcus Montgomery. 8 months of brief encounters, polite nods, occasional small talk about the weather. She was his employee, nothing more. His grief was not hers to tend to. And yet, she couldn't shake the image of him alone in this vast house, surrounded by reminders of wealth that meant nothing, avoiding an entire hallway because one door held too much pain. Her phone buzzed with a text message. It was Marcus, with my sister. Baby arrived safely, a healthy girl. Everyone's okay. I'll be back late, around 9. Thank you again for today. Elena typed back. Wonderful news. Congratulations to your sister. No rush, Sophia and I are fine here. She stared at the phone after sending the message, then added, I need to talk to you when you return. Nothing bad, just something I need to tell you. The afternoon stretched long. Sophia grew restless again despite Mr. Hoppy's company, so Elena did something she'd never done before. She let her daughter explore the mansion's safer spaces. They played hide and seek in the library, Sophia squealing with delight as she tucked herself behind the velvet curtains. They rolled a tennis ball back and forth across the marble floor in the great room. They looked at the fish in Marcus's saltwater aquarium, Sophia pressing her nose to the glass and naming each one. Around 4 o'clock, Sophia yawned widely. "I'm tired, Mommy." "I know, mi amor. Come on." Elena brought her daughter upstairs to one of the guest bedrooms, a neutral space in beige and cream, with a bed large enough that Sophia wouldn't roll off. She tucked her in, Mr. Hoppy beside her, and within minutes Sophia was asleep, her dark lashes fanning across her cheeks. Elena stood in the doorway watching her daughter sleep, this miracle of a child who existed against all odds. Sophia's father had disappeared before she was born, wanting no part of parenthood. Elena's pregnancy had been difficult, marked by complications that nearly ended in tragedy. She'd been so alone through it all, working up until her water broke, going back to work just 3 weeks after Sophia's birth because she had no choice. But Sophia was here, alive and healthy and perfect. Not every story ended in loss. Elena had gotten lucky, even if it hadn't felt like luck at the time, even if she'd spent most of Sophia's first year terrified and exhausted and wondering how she'd survive. She found herself walking back to the nursery, drawn by something she couldn't name. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows now, warming the space, and it struck Elena that this room needed to be more than a shrine. All this love, all these carefully chosen things, they were meant to be used to serve their purpose. Marcus's sister had just had a baby. A healthy girl, like the one he'd lost. An idea began forming in Elena's mind. It was presumptuous, possibly overstepping every professional boundary. But it also felt right in a way she couldn't explain. She spent the next hour carefully gathering items from the nursery. The newborn clothes, still in their packaging. The unopened baby care essentials. The beautiful mobile. The books meant for a parent to read. She found a large box in the garage and packed everything with gentle hands, including a note written on a piece of Marcus's own stationery that she found in his office. "For your new niece, from the aunt she'll never meet. May she be surrounded by love." Elena tucked the journal back exactly where she'd found it. That was too personal, too precious to give away. But everything else, all these practical things purchased with such hope, could still serve their intended purpose. A baby could still benefit from them. Marcus's sister's daughter could be wrapped in the blankets meant for Lily Rose, could wear the clothes chosen with such care. It wasn't about replacing what had been lost. Nothing could do that. But perhaps it was about letting love circulate, about refusing to let grief have the final word. When Sophia woke from her nap, they played in the kitchen while Elena made dinner. Pasta with butter and Parmesan, simple comfort food. She made enough for 3 people, uncertain if Marcus would be hungry when he returned but wanting to offer something tangible, something warm. The house grew dark around them. Elena turned on lights as she moved from room to room, and the mansion transformed from a cold showcase into something almost cozy. Sophia sat at the kitchen island coloring with markers Elena had found in a drawer, her tongue peeking out in concentration as she drew what she claimed was Mr. Hoppy. At 8:45, headlights swept across the front windows. Elena heard a car door close, footsteps on the porch. Her heart began to race. She still wasn't sure if what she'd done was right or terribly wrong. Marcus walked through the door, looking exhausted but lighter somehow. The weight of emergency lifted. He stopped short when he saw Elena and Sophia still there, the house warm and lit, the smell of food in the air. "You didn't have to stay," he said, but there was gratitude in his voice. "I wanted to," Elena replied. "And I need to talk to you. But first, your sister and the baby are really okay?" "They are." For the first time in 8 months, Elena saw Marcus truly smile. "She's perfect. 7 pounds, 2 ounces. They're naming her Emma." "That's wonderful. Are you hungry? I made some pasta. Nothing fancy, but..." "That sounds amazing, actually." Marcus set down his keys, and Elena noticed his hands were shaking slightly. The adrenaline of the day was wearing off, leaving him wrung out. Sophia looked up from her coloring.
Hi.
I'm Sophia. I'm 3. This is Mr. Hoppy. She held up the gray rabbit, and Elena watched the color drain from Marcus's face. His eyes went to the toy, then to Elena, and she saw the moment he understood. The lock was broken, Elena said quietly. Sophia wandered upstairs and opened the door before I could stop her. I'm so sorry, I know that room was private. Marcus stood very still, his expression unreadable. Sophia, oblivious to the tension, continued chattering. There were so many toys up there, and pretty pictures on the walls. But the room seemed sad, like nobody ever plays there. So Mr. Hoppy came to keep me company. That's okay, right? Marcus's jaw worked. For a long moment he didn't speak. Then, finally, yes. Yes, that's okay. Marcus sat heavily at the kitchen island, his eyes still fixed on the rabbit in Sophia's arms. Elena bustled nervously, serving pasta onto plates, her hands trembling slightly. The kitchen felt too quiet despite Sophia's humming as she colored. I saw the journal, Elena said softly, setting a plate in front of Marcus. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have looked, but Sophia found it and she stopped, trying to organize her racing thoughts. Mr. Montgomery, I'm so deeply sorry for your loss. For your wife and daughter. She wasn't my wife, Marcus said quietly.
Not yet.
Rachel and I had only been together 2 years. We were going to get married after Lily was born. We wanted her at the wedding, wanted to be a family of 3. He laughed bitterly. We thought we had time to do things in the right order. Sophia looked up from her coloring, picking up on the sadness in his voice. She slid off her stool, walked over to Marcus, and solemnly offered him Mr. Hoppy. When you're sad, you can hold him. He's very soft. Marcus's face crumpled. He took the rabbit with shaking hands and pressed it against his chest, his shoulders heaving with silent sobs. Elena felt her own tears spill over as she watched this man, this billionaire, this genius, this person the world thought had everything, break apart in her kitchen over a stuffed toy that his daughter never got to hold. Sophia patted his arm with her small hand. It's okay to cry. Mommy says crying helps the sad come out so happy can come back in. Marcus pulled Sophia into a hug, this little girl he'd only just met, and wept into her dark curls while she patted his back consolingly. Elena stood at the counter, giving them this moment, understanding that sometimes strangers see our grief more clearly than anyone else because they carry no expectations of who we should be or how we should heal. When Marcus finally pulled back, his face was blotchy and wet. I'm sorry, he said. I haven't actually talked about them in 2 years. To anyone. You don't need to apologize, Elena said. Not ever. Not for that. Sophia returned to her coloring, having apparently decided the crisis was resolved. Children, Elena thought, had such simple faith that comfort worked, that tears could be dried, and the world would right itself. Marcus wiped his face with his hands. 2 years, 4 months, and 16 days, he said. That's how long it's been. Everyone says time heals, but what they don't tell you is that time also just keeps moving while you stay stuck. The world goes on. People forget. They stop asking how you are because they assume you're better, or because it makes them uncomfortable that you're not. Elena sat down beside him, leaving space but offering presence. You don't have to explain anything to me. I want to, he said. I need to, maybe. You saw that room. You read those letters. You know more about who I was, who we were, than anyone has in years. He took a shaky breath. Rachel was an architect. We met at a coffee shop, such a cliché. She was sketching building designs on napkins and I was debugging code on my laptop, and we kept stealing glances at each other until she finally came over and asked what I was working on. She was brilliant. Funny. She saw through all my defenses immediately. He pushed the pasta around his plate without eating. When we found out she was pregnant, we were terrified. We were so young, I was 30, she was only 29. We talked about kids eventually, but this was sooner than planned. But the fear turned into excitement so fast. We couldn't wait. We made so many plans. The nursery, Elena said softly. She designed it. Every detail. She wanted it to feel like walking into a forest, somewhere magical and safe. She painted those murals herself, spent weeks on them. I'd come home from work and find her up on a ladder, her belly huge, adding details to the fox's tail or getting the shadows just right under the rabbits. I'd tell her to rest, and she'd tell me to stop worrying, that women had been having babies since the dawn of time.
His voice cracked.
I should have made her rest more. I should have. No, Elena interrupted gently. You can't do that to yourself. I read the letters. You were a wonderful partner. What happened wasn't your fault. The doctors said there was nothing anyone could have done. An amniotic fluid embolism is like being struck by lightning, random, sudden, almost always fatal. 1 in 40,000 deliveries. We just happened to be the unlucky ones. He finally looked at Elena, his green eyes raw with pain. Rachel hemorrhaged. They did an emergency C-section. Lily was alive when they pulled her out. I heard her cry just once, this tiny sound, and they put her on Rachel's chest for 7 minutes while Rachel's blood pressure dropped and the machine started screaming. Rachel looked at her, touched her face, whispered, "I love you." And then she looked at me and said, "Take care of our girl." And those were the last words she ever spoke. Elena couldn't stop her tears now. Marcus, I'm so sorry. Lily lived for 3 hours. They whisked her to the NICU, did everything they could, but her lungs weren't developed enough. I held her while she died. This tiny, perfect person, 4 pounds and 9 ounces, with Rachel's red hair and my nose. I sang her lullabies I didn't know I knew. I told her about her mom. And then her heart stopped, and he couldn't continue. Sophia, who had been coloring quietly, looked up again. She slid off her stool, walked to Marcus, and climbed into his lap without asking permission. She nestled against his chest, holding Mr. Hoppy between them. "I'm sorry your baby had to go away," she said. "But I bet she's playing with my abuela in heaven. Abuela died before I was born, but Mommy says she loves me anyway and watches me from the sky." Marcus wrapped his arms around Sophia and pressed his face into her hair. When he spoke, his voice was muffled. "Your abuela is very lucky to know you." They sat like that for a long moment, this impromptu family of grief and comfort, before Sophia wriggled free and announced she was hungry. The spell broken, Elena warmed up the pasta, and they ate together at the island, Marcus managing a few bites, Sophia chattering about her day, the strange domesticity of the moment not lost on any of them. After dinner, Sophia started yawning again. "Mommy, I'm tired. Can we go home?" "Soon, baby. I need to finish talking to Mr. Montgomery first." Marcus stood. "You should both stay the night. It's late. You've been here all day. There are 8 bedrooms in this house, and most have never been slept in. Please." Elena hesitated, but the exhaustion of the emotional day was catching up with her too. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. Besides, I think Sophia and I need to have an important discussion about the proper care and feeding of Mr. Hoppy." Sophia perked up immediately. "He likes carrots. And bedtime stories." "Well, I happen to have carrots. And I might know a story or 2. Elena followed Marcus upstairs, Sophia between them, the little girl's hand in his as if she'd known him forever. He showed them to a guest room with an attached bathroom, promised to bring them anything they needed, and then surprised them both by asking, "Would it be okay if I read Sophia her bedtime story? If that's not overstepping." Sophia bounced excitedly.
"Yes."
"Can we read in the pretty room with the animals?" Elena and Marcus's eyes met. "Sophia, that room is special to Mr. Montgomery," Elena started, but Marcus interrupted. "It's okay," he said quietly. "Maybe it's time." So the 3 of them walked to the nursery, and Marcus switched on the lamp by the rocking chair, the first time that light had been turned on in more than 2 years. Sophia settled into his lap with Mr. Hoppy while Elena sat on the floor nearby, and Marcus pulled, "Guess How Much I Love You" from the shelf. His voice was steady as he read, though Elena could hear the emotion underneath. Sophia listened intently, her eyes growing heavy, and when Marcus got to the end, "I love you right up to the moon and back," Sophia murmured. "That's how much your baby loved you, too." Marcus's breath caught. "Yes," he whispered. "Yes, I think she did." Elena carried Sophia to the guest room and tucked her into the large bed, Sophia already half asleep, Mr. Hoppy clutched tight. When she came back downstairs, she found Marcus in the kitchen, staring at the box she'd packed from the nursery. "I found this," he said. "What is it?" Elena's heart raced. "I'm sorry. I should have asked first. I packed up some of the things from the nursery, the unopened items, the newborn clothes. I thought maybe your sister could use them. For Emma. But I completely overstepped, and if you want me to put everything back." "You did this for my sister?" Marcus opened the box, looking at the carefully packed items, reading the note she'd written. His hands trembled as he held up the tiny coming-home outfit, the one meant for Lily Rose. "Elena, his voice broke. "This is the kindest thing anyone has done for me in 2 years. I just thought," Elena said carefully, "that Rachel bought these things with so much love. And that love shouldn't be locked away. It should go to a baby who needs them. It doesn't replace anything or erase anything. But maybe it lets the love continue." Marcus set down the outfit and pulled Elena into a hug that surprised them both. She stiffened for a moment. He was her employer. This was unprofessional. But then she felt his shoulders shake with sobs and she hugged him back, this broken person who'd been carrying his grief alone for so long. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for seeing. Thank you for caring. Thank you for bringing Sophia here today. I know you didn't plan to, but I think maybe it's exactly what needed to happen." When they pulled apart, Marcus wiped his eyes and gave her a watery smile. "I'm delivering this to my sister tomorrow. And Elena, you're not working Tuesday. You're coming with me as my friend, not my employee. I want Sarah to meet you." Elena woke in the unfamiliar bedroom to sunlight streaming through gauze curtains and the sound of voices downstairs, one deep, one piping high, both laughing. She checked her phone, 8:30. She'd slept later than she had in years, exhausted by the emotional weight of the previous day. Sophia and Marcus were in the kitchen making pancakes, or rather, making an ambitious mess while attempting pancakes. Sophia stood on a step stool at the counter, a too large apron wrapped around her twice, flour dusting her nose. Marcus stood beside her, also flour-dusted, patiently demonstrating how to crack an egg. "See, you tap it gently on the edge of the bowl, then oops." The egg exploded in Sophia's hands, shell and yolk everywhere. Sophia giggled. "I did it wrong. That's okay. That's how we learn. Let's try another one together." Marcus placed his hands over Sophia's smaller ones, guiding her through the motion, and the egg cracked perfectly into the bowl. Sophia beamed with pride. Elena stood in the doorway watching them, her heart doing something complicated in her chest. This was not the distant, polished businessman she'd known for 8 months. This was someone gentler, more open, someone grief had hollowed out but not destroyed. "Mommy." Sophia spotted her. "We're making breakfast. Mr. Marcus says I'm a very good helper." "I can see that," Elena said, surveying the disaster zone of a kitchen. "You two are definitely very good at something." They ate the slightly lumpy pancakes at the kitchen island, Sophia chattering about everything and nothing, Marcus engaging with her stories about daycare and her stuffed animals and her favorite cartoon as if they were the most fascinating things he'd ever heard. Elena watched the easy rapport between them and marveled at children's ability to slip through the walls adults built around their hearts. After breakfast, Marcus asked, "Are you free today? Both of you?" Elena thought of her apartment waiting to be cleaned, laundry piling up, the errands she always ran on Saturdays. Then she looked at Marcus's hopeful face and Sophia's eager one and said, "Yes, we're free. Then come with me to meet my sister."
Please.
"I want to deliver these things," he gestured to the box, "and I don't want to go alone." They drove to Boston in Marcus's car, Sophia strapped into a car seat he pulled from his garage. "Left over from when he'd babysit his sister's older kids," he explained. The 2-hour drive passed in easy conversation, Sophia eventually falling asleep in the back, and Marcus and Elena talking with surprising openness. He told her about building his company, about the sudden wealth that had seemed exciting until it became suffocating, about how losing Rachel and Lily had made all of it meaningless. "I sold the company because I couldn't stand to walk into that office anymore. Every meeting, every decision felt pointless. Who cares about artificial intelligence or market disruption when real people you love, just disappear?" Elena told him about leaving El Salvador, about Sophia's father disappearing, about the fear and loneliness of early motherhood in a country where she knew no one. "Some days I was so tired, I didn't know how I'd make it through. But then Sophia would smile at me, or learn something new, and I'd remember why I was doing it. Why I'd left everything I knew." "You're incredibly strong," Marcus said. "I didn't feel strong. I felt terrified most of the time." That's what strength is, though. Doing the impossible while terrified. They reached the hospital just before noon. Marcus carried the box while Elena woke Sophia and held her hand through the parking garage. Inside, they navigated to the maternity ward, where Marcus's sister Sarah was recovering in a private room. Sarah looked exhausted but radiant, propped up in bed with a tiny bundle swaddled in hospital blankets. Her husband Tom sat beside her, equally bleary-eyed and happy. When they saw Marcus, Sarah's face lit up. "You came back. And you brought..." She looked at Elena and Sophia with friendly curiosity. "This is Elena, who works at my house. And this is Sophia, who's 3 and very wise. They're my friends." Marcus said the last part with emphasis, meeting Elena's eyes, making clear this wasn't an employer-employee dynamic anymore. Sophia peeked at the baby with wide eyes. "She's so tiny, like a baby doll." "She is tiny," Sarah agreed. "Would you like to see her more closely?" While Sophia was introduced to baby Emma, Marcus pulled Sarah aside and showed her the box. Elena watched from across the room as he explained quietly, watched Sarah's face transform from confusion to understanding to tears. She stood, carefully, wincing slightly, and hugged her brother fiercely. "Marcus," she whispered, and Elena could hear the emotion even from a distance. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. Rachel would have wanted it. She'd have loved knowing another baby was wrapped in the love she put into choosing these things." Sarah opened the box right there, pulling out the tiny clothes and the mobile and the books, exclaiming over each one. "These are beautiful. These are too beautiful. Marcus, thank you. And..." She looked at Elena. "Elena, I understand this was your idea. Thank you for taking care of my brother. For seeing him." Elena felt her face warm. "I didn't do anything special." "You did," Marcus said firmly. "You did exactly what needed to be done." They stayed at the hospital for 2 hours. Sophia was remarkably gentle with the baby, stroking Emma's tiny hand with one finger, whispering to her about Mr. Hoppy and all the fun things babies get to do when they grow up. Sarah and Tom listened to the story of how Elena and Sophia had ended up at the mansion, how the locked door had opened, how everything had unfolded with the strange inevitability of things meant to be. "You know what today is?" Sarah asked Marcus quietly. "It's October 23rd. Marcus went pale. "I didn't realize." "What's October 23rd? Elena asked. "Lily's birthday," Sarah said gently. "She would have turned 2 today." The room fell silent. Even Sophia seemed to sense the weight of the moment, staying unusually still. Marcus stared at baby Emma sleeping peacefully in her bassinet, and Elena watched him grapple with the mathematics of loss, His daughter would have been 2, and instead, here was his niece at 2 days old, wrapped in the blankets meant for Lily. I think, Tom said carefully, that maybe Lily sent Sophia to open that door today. Some kind of cosmic timing. I don't believe in that kind of thing, Marcus said, but his voice was uncertain. You don't have to believe in it, Sarah replied. But you can't deny that something extraordinary happened. Sophia opened a door you couldn't. Elena saw you in a way you've been invisible for 2 years. And today, on Lily's birthday, her things are going to a baby who needs them. That's not coincidence. That's grace. On the drive back to Connecticut, Sophia fell asleep again immediately, exhausted by the big day. Marcus was quiet for a long time, processing, before he finally spoke. I've been so angry, he said. For 2 years, I've been furious at the universe, at fate, at whatever force decides who lives and who dies. It felt so random and cruel. But today, seeing Sarah with Emma, healthy and safe, I felt something besides anger for the first time. I felt grateful that Sarah didn't have to go through what Rachel and I did. Grateful that Emma will grow up loved and whole. Is that strange? No, Elena said. That's healing. It doesn't mean you miss them any less. It just means you're allowing yourself to feel other things too. I don't know how to live in a world without them. You're already doing it. You're doing it right now. When they reached the mansion, Sophia woke up enough to walk inside, but she was fading fast. Elena carried her up to the guest room from the night before, and Marcus followed, helping tuck Sophia in. Can we stay here again? Sophia asked sleepily. This house is nice. And Mr. Marcus is nice. Elena looked at Marcus, uncertain. Baby, this isn't our house. Actually, Marcus interrupted, I have an idea. I want to run by your mom. But yes, Sophia, you can stay here anytime you want. You're always welcome. Sophia fell asleep within minutes, Mr. Hoppy tucked under her arm, and Elena followed Marcus back downstairs. He led her to his study, a room she'd dusted dozens of times but never truly looked at. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a massive desk with 3 monitors, leather chairs by a fireplace that looked rarely used. This was where he disappeared during her cleaning visits, where he hid from the world. Marcus gestured for her to sit, then paced nervously before finally settling into the chair across from her. I've been thinking about something all day, and I need to just say it before I lose my nerve. Elena's heart rate picked up. Okay. This house is too big for one person. It's too quiet. I bought it thinking Rachel and I would fill it with family, with life, and instead, it became a mausoleum. I've been existing here, not living. He met her eyes. But yesterday, with you and Sophia here, it was the first time this place felt like a home instead of a tomb. And I know this is going to sound crazy, but I want you to consider moving in. Both of you. Elena's mouth fell open. Marcus, what? Not as my employee, he said quickly. As, I don't know what to call it. As family, maybe? As people who understand each other's broken pieces? This house has 8 bedrooms. You could have an entire wing to yourself. Sophia could have a playroom. I'd charge you nothing. Honestly, you'd be doing me a favor. I can't stand the emptiness anymore. I can't accept that, Elena said automatically. That's too much. I couldn't possibly. Why not? Marcus leaned forward, earnest and intense. Elena, you work 3 jobs to make ends meet. You told me in the car that you're constantly worried about money, about childcare, about keeping Sophia safe in a neighborhood that's getting worse. You said your landlord is raising the rent again. Why not let me help? Because I don't take charity. It's not charity. He struggled for words. It's me being selfish. I need you here. Both of you. Yesterday was the first day in 2 years that I didn't wake up wishing I hadn't. Sophia made me laugh. You made me feel seen. You opened that door, literally and metaphorically, and let light into a space I'd locked away. His voice cracked. Please don't make me close it again. Elena's mind reeled. Move into this mansion? Accept this impossible generosity from a man she barely knew? It was too much, too fast, too complicated. But then she thought of her cramped apartment where Sophia didn't have space to play. She thought of the stained carpet and the neighbors who fought loudly and the fear she carried about whether they'd be safe. She thought of the exhaustion of juggling multiple jobs, of never seeing her daughter enough, of the constant anxiety about money. And she thought of Sophia's face yesterday, the pure joy as she explored this house like it was a castle. The way she'd curled up in Marcus's lap, so naturally. The way he'd read to her in the nursery, bringing life into that space of grief. I need time to think about it, she said finally. Of course. Take all the time you need. But Elena? At least let me help practically. Let me pay for Sophia's daycare. Let me set up a college fund for her. Small things that would make a huge difference for you, but barely register for me financially. Why would you do that? Because you saw me when I was invisible. Because Sophia hugged me when I was falling apart. Because kindness should be repaid with kindness. He smiled sadly. And because I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, and it means nothing if I can't use it to help people I care about. They talked long into the evening, working through the logistics and fears and implications of his offer. Marcus was patient, answering every concern, never pushing, making clear that whatever Elena decided would be okay. But Elena could see the hope in his eyes, the desperate wish not to return to the echoing loneliness of this house. Around 9, Elena checked on Sophia and found her still sleeping peacefully. When she came back downstairs, Marcus had made tea and was sitting at the kitchen island looking pensive. I have a counteroffer, Elena said. He looked up. I'm listening. We move in, but I pay rent, a reasonable rent, something I can actually afford. And I keep one of my other jobs because I need to maintain some independence. And she took a breath. And you see a therapist, a grief counselor. Because Marcus, you're clearly still drowning. And while I'm happy to be your friend, I can't be your lifeline. You need professional help. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. That's fair. That's more than fair. Yes to all of it. And one more thing. That nursery, we leave it exactly as it is. That's your space, your grief, and it stays sacred. But maybe sometimes you let me dust in there. Let it be cared for instead of abandoned. Yes, Marcus whispered. God, yes. They shook hands formally, then both laughed at the absurdity of it. This strange agreement, this unconventional arrangement that was going to raise eyebrows and prompt questions. But Elena found she didn't care what anyone else thought. This felt right in a way she couldn't explain. Over the next 2 weeks, Elena and Sophia moved into the Montgomery estate. Marcus had insisted on hiring movers, but Elena had insisted on packing herself, needing to maintain some control. Sophia was ecstatic about her new bedroom, painted yellow at her request, filled with new books and toys that Marcus couldn't resist buying. The three of them fell into an unexpected rhythm. Elena still cleaned houses during the day while Sophia was at daycare, but she came home to a mansion that felt less empty. Marcus started working again on a new project, something about AI ethics, about using technology to help rather than replace people, and he seemed lighter, more engaged. In the evenings, they'd have dinner together, the three of them at the kitchen island or at the formal dining table when Marcus attempted fancy meals that usually ended in laughter and pizza delivery. Sophia thrived. She had space to play, a yard to explore, and Marcus became the uncle figure she'd never had. He taught her to code using simple kids programs. He read her stories every night. He played endless games of hide-and-seek and pretended to lose at Go Fish, even though Elena was certain he knew exactly where the cards were. One evening, about a month after they'd moved in, Elena found Marcus in the nursery. He was sitting in the rocking chair, holding the journal, but he wasn't crying. He was smiling. Hey, she said softly from the doorway.
Hey.
I was just reading back through these. remembering. He looked up at her. I used to avoid this room because it hurt too much. But lately, it hurts less. It's still sad. It'll always be sad, but it's not unbearable anymore. Elena sat on the floor, near the chair. That's good. That's really good. I started seeing a therapist. You were right, I needed help. We've been talking about complicated grief, about survivor's guilt, about how to honor what I lost while still living.
He paused.
She suggested I might want to write again. Not letters to Lily, those are finished, that chapter closed. But maybe letters to myself. Or to Rachel. Telling her how I'm doing. What she's missing. What is she missing? Marcus looked at Elena for a long moment. She's missing you. And Sophia. She's missing me learning to be happy again. She's missing me understanding that loving and losing doesn't mean I can never love again. It just means I know how precious it is. Elena's breath caught. They'd been dancing around something for weeks now, this connection that was deeper than friendship but undefined, unspoken. Neither wanted to rush, to complicate the fragile balance they'd found. But the words hung between them now, an acknowledgement of something growing. I'm not trying to replace her, Elena said carefully. I could never. You're not replacing anyone. You're just you. And Rachel would have liked you so much. She would have loved how you looked at grief and decided to do something about it, how you brought your tornado of a daughter into my life and refused to let me stay buried in the past. They sat in comfortable silence, the nursery peaceful around them. After a while, Marcus said, I think I'm ready to do something I've been considering. I want to turn this room into something new. Not erasing what it was, but transforming it. A reading room, maybe. A library for Sophia. Somewhere the light can come in and the space serves a purpose again. Are you sure? I am. I'll keep the murals. They're too beautiful to paint over, and Rachel's art should be seen. I'll keep some of the furniture, some of the memories. But I'll add bookshelves and cozy chairs and make it a space for living, not just grieving. He looked at Elena. Would you help me? Would you and Sophia help me reimagine it? We'd be honored. Over the next month, they slowly transformed the nursery. Marcus kept his word. The murals stayed, the rocking chair stayed, and he carefully stored away the journal and a few special items in a memory box. But they added built-in bookshelves that climbed the walls, a window seat with cushions where Sophia could read, a small desk for homework someday. It became a beautiful hybrid space, honoring what was while embracing what could be. The day they finished, they had a small ceremony. Just the three of them, standing in the transformed room. Marcus lit a candle and spoke quietly. Rachel, Lily, I'm not forgetting you. I'm never forgetting you. But I'm learning to live alongside the loss instead of inside it. I hope you understand. I hope wherever you are, you're at peace. Sophia, without prompting, added, and I hope you're friends with my abuela. She's really nice. Elena squeezed Marcus's hand, and he squeezed back, and they stood there as a found family, imperfect and healing and whole. 6 months later, on a warm April evening, Elena found Marcus in the kitchen cooking dinner. He'd gotten quite good at it. Sophia was in the library room, as they now called it, reading to Mr. Hoppy. The mansion felt alive with music playing and windows open to the spring breeze. Hey, Elena said, sliding her arms around Marcus from behind. They'd been together officially for 3 months now, taking it slow, but certain. Need help. Always. He turned in her arms and kissed her forehead. Sophia told me today that she wants to plant flowers in the backyard. A garden. That sounds nice. She wants to dedicate it to Lily and Rachel. She said they'd like knowing that beautiful things were growing. Marcus's voice was thick with emotion. That kid is 3 years old and wiser than most adults. 3.5 now. She'll correct you. They laughed, and it struck Elena how normal this had become. How this mansion that had been a monument to loss had become a home full of love and laughter and hope. How grief didn't have to be the end of a story. It could be a chapter, a painful but important part of a longer narrative. That weekend, the three of them planted a garden. Sophia directed with all the authority of a preschooler who'd watched one gardening show, telling Marcus and Elena exactly where the roses should go, where the lilies needed to be planted. They worked in the dirt together, hands muddy, Sophia's laughter ringing through the air, and when they were done, they stood back and admired their work. "It's perfect," Sophia declared. Then she looked up at Marcus. "Do you think they can see it? From heaven?" Marcus knelt down to her level. "I think if heaven is real, they have the best view in the house." That night, after Sophia was asleep and Elena and Marcus sat on the back patio watching the stars, Marcus pulled out something from his pocket. It was a key. "What's this?" Elena asked. "It's the key to the ivory door, the one that was always locked." He pressed it into her palm. "I want you to have it. Not because the room needs to be locked anymore, it doesn't. But, as a reminder, you opened a door I couldn't. You let light into the darkest parts of my life. You showed me that love doesn't end when people leave. It just changes form, finds new expressions." Elena closed her hand around the key, tears streaming down her face. "Marcus, I love you," he said simply. "I love Sophia. I'm not comparing you to Rachel or trying to recreate what I lost. I'm just living. Finally, after 2 years of being frozen, I'm actually living. And it's because of you." "I love you too," Elena whispered. They sat under the stars, two people who'd found each other through grief and a 3-year-old's curiosity, and they talked about the future. About Sophia starting school in the fall. About Marcus's new company taking off. About maybe, someday, expanding their family. About the beautiful, messy, complicated business of building a life after loss. The ivory door stayed unlocked now, open to whoever needed the quiet comfort of the library room. The garden grew wild and beautiful. Sophia grew taller, wiser, filling the mansion with the chaos and joy of childhood. And Marcus, who'd locked himself away in his grief, learned that the secret he'd been keeping, the pain he'd hidden behind that door, had needed exactly what Sophia brought: innocent courage, unconditional love, and the belief that sad rooms could become happy again. Because sometimes the secret isn't what's behind the locked door. Sometimes the secret is that doors aren't meant to stay locked forever. Sometimes love opens them when we can't do it ourselves. And sometimes, just sometimes, a toddler with a stuffed rabbit and a heart full of hope is exactly what a broken person needs to begin healing. The mansion on Willowbrook Lane wasn't quiet anymore. It was full of life and laughter, of piano music and cartoon songs, of burned dinners and successful ones, of tears and healing and slow, steady growth. The billionaire's secret was out. He was just a man who'd loved and lost and found the courage to love again. And the maid who'd cleaned his house had become the woman who'd opened his heart. Some doors, once opened, change everything.